Now, a senior UN official has warned that threats of military action against Iran, like those made by U.S. President Donald Trump, increase volatility in the protest-torn country.
And the U.S.-backed based rights group says that death toll from the violent crackdown on protesters has surpassed 2,600. Until Wednesday, the United States was threatening military action against Iran should it carry out the death penalty against people arrested over the protests. And Washington's envoy to the UN renewed the threats on Thursday, saying all options were still on the table.
Colleagues, let me be clear. President Trump is a man of action, not endless talk like we see at the United Nations. He has made it clear all options are on the table to stop the slaughter. And no one should know that better than the leadership of the Iranian regime.
Iran's representative at the meeting, Ghalami Hossein Thursday, accused Washington of exploitation of peaceful protests for geopolitical purposes.
Albeit reportedly at a smaller scale than
Iran seeks neither escalation nor confrontation. However, any act of aggression, direct or indirect, will be met with a decisive, proportionate, and lawful response under Article 51 of the Charter. This is not a threat. It is a statement of legal reality. Responsibility for all consequences will rest solely with those who initiate such unlawful acts.
Iranian journalist and political dissident Masih Alinejad broke down in tears at the meeting. As she read out the names of the people she said were killed during protests in Iran.
Again and again, cannot be reformed. The Iranian people are asking the world to help through actions, not back-to-back meetings and empty condemnation. We don't need empty words. People of Iran are asking the Islamic Republic are telling you the Islamic Republic no longer can be reformed.
The nationwide shutdown of internet by authorities in Iran has now lasted a full week. Activists fear it is aimed at masking the true scale of crackdown on the protests.
Well, images show light traffic in Tehran as residents go about their routines following a wave of some of the biggest anti-government protests. Iranians arriving in Turkey through a land border said that the protests have largely subsided, adding that U.S. should not intervene.
There is chaos in Iran. There is war in Iran. It has stopped now, but it is unclear what will happen. U.S. President Donald Trump said he would intervene in Iran, but he can't. Also, we don't have internet. We are not informed. We cannot learn what is happening inside.
He, Trump, cannot do anything. When we are united in Muslim countries, they cannot do anything. There is nothing going on anyway. There was turmoil for a few days, but everything has ended.
White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt has said Trump is closely monitoring the situation on the ground in Iran, adding that he and his team have warned Iran there would be grave consequences if killings linked to its crackdown continue.
And for more on this, we're now being joined by retired Colonel Davis B.J. Roches from Washington, D.C. He's a professor at the Near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies at National Defense University. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you.
Sir, President Trump earlier said that he's going to adopt a watch and see approach. But now we're hearing at the UN that all options are back on the table. Now, I want to understand from you, was U.S. military intervention ever really off the table? And what measures is U.S. considering at this point in time?
Well, I don't know what's being considered. I don't think that military action was ever truly off the table. But President Trump, there's two things to bear in mind. The first one is that President Trump, in spite of what many people think, is not a fan of military action. He prefers to use economic power as his lever. So, for example, we saw today that Ali Larijani, who was the secretary of the Iranian National Security Council, was sanctioned. We're seeing stepped up sanctions of various Iranian banks and oil transiting entities. Another ship in the Shadow Fleet was seized, although from Venezuela, but there's usually an Iranian connection with these ships. So what he wants, his preferred mode of action is to use economic power. Why hasn't there been military action? Well, I think a big part of that is we just didn't have the assets in place. So we have the ability to launch a strike against Iran, but Iran has threatened that if the United States were to strike it, it would strike not against the United States, but rather against commercial shipping in the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea, and against the Arab states that are friendly with the United States in the region. So we just don't have assets there the way we did, say, in June. We don't have any aircraft carriers. Right now, the USS Abraham Lincoln is sailing from the South China Sea reportedly towards the Arabian Sea. I think that once it is in place and we see a reposition of other aerial assets, if the Iranian regime doesn't change its behavior, the possibility of a military strike is very real.
That's an interesting point you point out, because when it comes to any escalation that might happen, of course, these are Arab states we're looking at, because Iran has threatened to attack the U.S. bases in all these Arab states. Then what are the other ways, like sanctions? How important or how effective would these sanctions be, according to you? And would there be a time where, there would be a possibility that the U.S. might take military strikes?
Yeah. So first off, Iran has threatened to attack the Arab states, not just American facilities within Arab states. So it's important to bear in mind. So the thing about sanctions is the theory, and I think Trump believes this, that ultimately economic collapse, when you deal with a corrupt regime like you have in Iran, you apply economic pressure, and the power holders within the regime inevitably turn from defending the regime to try to secure their own money and their family's safety overseas. So there have been reports that Mujtaba Khamenei, the son of the supreme leader, who some think is being put forward to be the next supreme leader, has moved over $1.5 billion to an escrow account in the UAE. That is kind of what Trump wants to see, is the regime elites fighting with each other over money and basically looking after their own interest, and then the regime implodes. To a certain extent, that's what happened in Syria, where really the regime was being underwritten by Captagon sales that were increasingly concentrated within the Assad family, most notably in Bashar al-Assad's brother Maher. The problem with this economic lever of power is that it is not very responsive. It takes a very long time to have effect. And if the ruling elite is extremely ideologically motivated, or if they feel that they don't have an option in exile, they may fight a lot longer than people want them to.
And also talking about nuclear talks, which they have been, they were taking place last year. Somehow there was no outbreak on that. But do you think nuclear talks would be the other thing that Trump might be looking for to in talks with Iran?
I don't think he wants nuclear talks just for the sake of nuclear talks. I mean, I think that he knows where the talks run into a brick wall, which is Iran insists on having enrichment and Trump insists that Iran cannot have enrichment. So I don't think there's any, I don't think that Trump sees any value just in having talks, because he kind of knows what the Iranian position is. So unless the Iranians signal to him through a back channel, and that could be the Omanis, or usually it's the Omanis, but it could be any number of other countries, unless they signal that they're willing to give up on having a domestic enrichment capability, I don't think Trump will see any value in nuclear talks. They're just likely to be, quite frankly, time wasting. And they know that, the Iranians know the American political system. They think that after the midterm elections, Trump will be weaker, so they want to wait him out.
All right. Well, that's an interesting take from your side. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on the show and your analysis. Listen to it.
Thank you. It's an honor.